The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
Newly released memo by Donald Rumsfeld proves the Iraq War started on false pretenses. Everyone knew Iraq had no WMDs, and was not behind anthrax attacks or 9/11. Everyone knew that Iraq didn't have weapons of mass destruction. Indeed, Secretary of State Colin Powell's Chief of Staff Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson just said that Powell knew that there were no WMDs. I wonder what will happen when we put 500,000 troops into Iraq, and comb the country from one end to the other, and find nothing starting at 6:43 into video. It has been extensively documented that the White House decided to invade Iraq before 9/11. Former CIA Director George Tenet said that the White House wanted to invade Iraq long before 9/11, and inserted crap in its justifications for invading Iraq. Former Treasury Secretary Paul O'Neill, who sat on the National Security Council, also says that Bush planned the Iraq War before 9/11. Top British officials say that the United States discussed Iraq regime change even before Bush took office. And in 2000, Cheney said a Bush administration might have to take military action to forcibly remove Saddam from power. And see this. Cheney made Iraq's oil fields a national security priority before 9/11. And the Sunday Herald reported, 5 months before September 11th, that the United States advocated using force against Iraq to secure control of its oil. Remember that Alan Greenspan, John McCain, George W. Bush, Sarah Palin, a high-level National Security Council officer, and others all say that the Iraq War was really about oil. Indeed, neoconservatives planned regime change in Iraq and throughout the Middle East and North Africa 20 years ago. George W. Bush, John McCain, Sarah Palin, a high-level National Security Council officer, Alan Greenspan, and others all say that the Iraq War was really about oil. But war is sold just like soda or toothpaste, and so a false justification needs to be concocted. The government tried to falsely blame the anthrax attacks on Iraq as a justification for war, when Congress was originally asked to pass the Patriot Act in late 2001. The anthrax attacks, which occurred only weeks earlier, were falsely blamed on spooky Arabs, as a way to scare Congress members into approving the bill. Specifically, the FBI was actually told to blame anthrax scare on Al-Qaeda by White House officials. High-level government insiders pointed towards Iraq as the source of the anthrax, even though there was absolutely no reason to think that the anthrax had come from Iraq, and George Bush throughout 2002 routinely featured anthrax as one of Saddam's scary weapons. Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld, President Bush, and VP Cheney all falsely linked Iraq with 9/11, and the entire torture program was aimed at establishing such a false linkage. A new book by NBC News and Newsweek investigative reporter Michael Isikoff adds details, including a memo written by Rumsfeld in November 2001, a year and a quarter before the start of the Iraq War, asking how to start a war against Iraq, and suggesting as one potential justification for war, how start.
Welcome back to the Ed Show. Thanks for watching tonight. Senator John McCain is once again trying to stir up things on Benghazi, claiming that there is a massive cover-up.
So there are many, many questions, and we have had a massive cover-up on the part of
But a massive cover-up of what? I mean, Susan Rice, wait a minute, Susan Rice said there was a lot of confusion.
Do you care, David?
I'm asking you, Senator, what is the cover-up of what?
I'm asking you, do you care? I'm asking you, do you care whether 4 Americans died? The reasons for that, and shouldn't people be held accountable for the fact that 4 Americans died?
You said there's a cover-up.
A very dear man.
What? I'm just asking you, a cover-up of what?
Of the information concerning the deaths of 4 brave Americans. The information has not been forthcoming. You can obviously believe that it has. I know that it hasn't.
McCain wasn't nearly so hysterical just a few days before at a news conference on Benghazi. McCain was addressing the Republican tactic of filibustering the Hagel confirmation to get more answers on Benghazi.
There are other questions that need to be answered, and we feel that the intervening week and a half almost is sufficient time to get those questions answered.
So from that comment right there to meet the press, something must have happened. because McCain wasn't talking about a massive cover-up there. In fact, he seems confident the questions will get answered. Even in his interview with David Gregory yesterday, McCain admitted the filibuster of Hagel would end.
But he will be confirmed, and we will have a vote when we get back, and I'm confident that Senator Hagel will probably have the votes necessary to be confirmed as the Secretary of Defense.
Round and round, and it just doesn't seem to add up, does it? If McCain is filibustering Hagel to get answers on Benghazi, and if McCain claims there is a massive cover-up, then why would McCain allow the Hagel vote to move forward after a week and a half? Well, time's up. Clock hit right to number 12. Let's move. McCain is interested in making wild accusations, but he's got nothing to back it up. Here's President Obama in this Google town hall he had last week. The president was talking about Benghazi last Thursday. Now, do you think there's a cover-up after you listen to this? Here it is.
We've had more testimony and more paper provided to Congress than ever before, and Congress is sort of running out of things to ask.
Like 10,000 pages. Let's turn to Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson, former Chief of Staff of the State Department during General Colin Powell's term and currently a distinguished visiting professor of government and public policy at the College of William and Mary. Colonel, good to have you with us tonight.
Good to be here, Ed.
You bet. Senators McCain and Graham tanked Ambassador Susan Rice, really went after her over Benghazi. They have filibustered Chuck Hagel over Benghazi. And now McCain still claims that there is a massive cover-up. What's going on here?
I think what's going on is a bit strange, just as you've implied. Let me tell you where I was on Friday. I was out at the new naval complex, the Bethesda Walter Reed Medical Complex, visiting with wounded warriors. These are people who paid almost the maximum price, some would say even more than the maximum price, in Iraq or Afghanistan, triple amputees, double amputees. And we were talking about this. They brought the issue up of why McCain, Graham, Inhofe, Cruz, and others are opposing Hagel. The real reason. And, you know, they dismissed Inhofe. He never saw a foxhole in his life. They dismissed Graham. He's an Air Force lawyer, never saw combat in his life. They dismissed Cruz. They think he's an idiot. But when it came to John McCain, they shrugged their shoulders and they looked at me and asked me, why? This man's a veteran. This man was a prisoner of war. He showed a great deal of courage under stress. What's wrong with John McCain? Ed, I asked the same question. What's wrong with John McCain?
Here are some of the Benghazi questions McCain raised with David Gregory. Here it is.
What did the president do, and who did he talk to the night of the attack on Benghazi? And why was it? Why was it that the people who were evacuated from the consulate the next day were not interviewed the next day? And then they would have known that it was not a spontaneous demonstration. Why did the president for 2 weeks during the heat of a campaign, continue to say he didn't know whether it was a terrorist attack or not?
Now, after classified and public hearings, are McCain and other Republicans still not getting sufficient answers as you see it?
I don't think so. I think they're just trying to make an issue out of this. I think this is all about trying to keep the president on the defensive. After all, he won the election and they didn't. I think this is all about trying to find time, delay, in order to find some kind of evidence that'll keep Senator Hagel from being confirmed. I think it's a desperate attempt, and I'll tell you, Ed, I think they're just doing what I long have said the Republican Party seems to be doing. They're adding to its attempt to commit suicide. It's certainly not helping the United States, and the delay of Senator Hagel as Secretary of Defense it's simply unconscionable.
Setting aside the Republican grandstanding that we've talked about, is there anything else that we need to know about Benghazi that will help us in the future?
I think one of the things we probably won't know for a long time is just how implicated the intelligence services, particularly the CIA and maybe the Special Operations Command at Fort Bragg, were in this, and how much of that was perhaps not known by the Secretary of State and others. Believe me, Ed, I've been there. I know how these things go down, and I wonder how fast the information did get in, given that there were other bureaucracies involved in it who maybe wanted to hide their dirty laundry and even their involvement. So this is the kind of thing that, for example, with the Bay of Pigs, you don't find out until 1998 all the details about something that happened in 1961. But none of this should stop the nation in the way that McCain, Graham, Inhofe, Cruz, and others want to, particularly with regard to confirming one of the most important ministers in the government, the Secretary of Defense.
Tonight, MSNBC, this network, will air hubris selling the Iraq War. Here's what you said about the day Congress passed a resolution authorizing Bush to attack Iraq. Here it is.
Powell walked into my office, and without so much as a fare-thee-well, he walked over to the window and he said, I wonder what will happen when we put 500,000 troops into Iraq and comb the country from one end to the other and find nothing. And he turned around and walked back in his office.
Colonel, do you believe the Bush administration cooked the books to sell the war in Iraq?
I didn't know it at the time, and I fault myself for that. I'll go to my grave with that mass failing on my part. But yes, in retrospect, having done all the research and work that my students and others have done, plus myself, I'm damn sure that the Bush administration cooked the books.
Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson, good to have you on the Ed Show tonight. Thanks so much. Appreciate it, sir.
Thanks for having me, Ed.
After record droughts, freak snowstorms, and of course Sandy, a massive climate change rally tries to wake up Washington and the country. That is next. Very little coverage on this. Newt Gingrich actually...
If there's a blue pill and a red pill, and the blue pill is half the price of the red pill and works just as well, why not pay half price?